Hey, what up YouTube, and welcome back to a new video with Rams Fan YT. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my predictions for the upcoming League One season, which kicks off tonight. It's all very exciting. As ever, let me know your League One predictions down below in the comments section. Who do you think is going to get promoted? Who do you think is going to get relegated? But without further ado, let's get straight into it. In 24th, I have got Northampton Town. I think Kevin Nolan is a good manager at League Two level, but I'm yet to be fully convinced on his abilities to compete in League One, as he has a 31.3% win percentage with Northampton. Personally, I don't think any of the goalkeepers are League One standard. John Guthrie is a good centre-back and is worthy of a captaincy, seeming he was the best centre-back in League Two the season Northampton got promoted. Jordan Thornley could be decent or he could be rubbish. He's had such a 50-50 career, and this season is the one he has to take a step up and prove himself for me. But overall, this defence is seriously lacking in quality. Midfield is marginally better with Dean Campbell, who I think is ready to compete in League One. Kamari Sawyer is a youthful prospect in attacking midfield, who I think could be an exciting player this season. Michael Jacobs adds a bit of experience to a youthful midfield, operating out on the wing, and we know he's had 3 League One promotions before, so certainly a good acquisition there. But overall, you're still looking at the midfield and thinking they are too young to get out of the mud. A front two partnership of Sam Hoskins in the deeper role as more of a second striker is good, with 371 league appearances with Northampton, and he scored 88 goals with them. But let's not forget Hoskins was the best player in League Two in Northampton when they got promoted in 2022-23, when he scored 22 goals in 41 league appearances. Tom Eaves is a veteran in League One, maybe mostly known for his time at Hull City, where he helped them to an instant return to the Championship. His performances in the Championship earned him a move to Rotherham United, which was mixed, to say the least. But considering between those two last season, they only scored 12 goals together, these two attacking players. And this could be a really uphill battle to stay up in League One, especially since they lost John Brady last season, who I thought was unfairly dismissed, seeming all he did at the club. And the architect of his side has just completely collapsed now. Yeah. Pretty poor season, 24th Northampton. 23rd, Peterborough United. Although Darren Ferguson truly bleeds blue and white after a poor performance last season, is it worth giving a completely new manager a chance with no history with the club at all? This may prove quite a controversial take maybe to some posh fans, but I certainly think the transfer window has been mixed. I do rate the acquisitions of Sam Hughes, for example, who previously was a central midfielder, but now a centre-back, and is one of those old-fashioned centre-halves, really. He gets stuck in, heads it, and kicks it, but is also a good organiser of defence, decent in the tackle, and a threat from set pieces, partly due to his height at 187 centimetres, meaning he's good in the air. And he's been in a dogfight in League One before with Burton Albion, and was certainly one of their best players in his spell with the Brewers. Brandon Keeler is a signing for the future, with him only being 20, and I can see him being a real bright spark this season. Alex Bass is a good keeper at League Two level, and I remain to be drawn on whether he can make the leap up, though. Losing both Jamaican international Malik Movasil and Kwame Poku, their 2 best players last season, really does leave them stranded, though. Ricky J. Jones is also gone, as is Hector Kyprianou. This is certainly one of the weakest posh sides we have seen in years. We may well and truly see the demise of Peterborough this season, with me predicting them to finish in the bottom 4 and relegated. I just think they've lost too much quality this window. 22nd, Wigan Athletic. Ryan Lowe certainly for me hasn't proven anything that will dissuade me that he hasn't been anything short of a failure with Wigan so far. At only 2 wins in 11 games last season, it simply isn't the form I would be wanting to come into the new season with. You could argue it isn't his team, and that's why he's only made, that's why he struggled last season, whatever. But he's only made 3 permanent transfers. And don't get me wrong, that Christian Sadie is a good player at this level, playing a key role in Portsmouth's League One promotion in 2023-24, as well as the youngster Dara Costello. And he was good on loan with Northampton last season, scoring 6 in 15 games. And you also cannot deny, even on loan, Paul Mullin is a great acquisition, with everyone knowing that the Wrexham legend can do, having scored 91 goals in 148 games for the Welsh side. But personally, I think he was poor in League One last season. When he played, and I know he was injured for part of it, but there was just better players at the club than him at Wrexham. And I'm sorry, you've got to get the best if you're going to try and improve. For me, this side is hardly any different to the side which finished in the bottom half last season, and they are currently on a hard downward trajectory, which we all know where that eventually takes you, and that is relegation. 21st, AFC Wimbledon. I do think Johnny Jackson is a good League Two manager and is taking Wimbledon on an upward trajectory. But the jump up to League One can be quite a difficult one. And we know from Jackson's spell last time in League One, he finished a very average 15th with Charlton, which would certainly have expected more in terms of overall positioning, considering the size of that club. In terms of incomings, I do rate Steve Seddon if the intention is to stay in League One, which I imagine is the case. Alistair Smith has been made a permanent signing after an amazing loan spell with the Dons last season. But I think losing James Ball is a poor move considering his size, strength, box-to-box nature, ability to cover ground, and goal-scoring pedigree from midfield. It just feels like he's not been given a chance to prove himself at League One level when he's coming to the peak of his career for me. Josh Neufville was Wimbledon's best player last season and instead has moved to potential relegation rivals Bradford City. You would think that they would both be in the mix coming up from League Two last season. James Tilley was another key player in Wimbledon's success last season. Lewis Ward was a great backup goalkeeper to have. Wimbledon legend Will Nightingale is no longer with the club. 9 incredible seasons, but having been with Ross County on loan for the last 2 seasons, maybe it's understandable. I just thought it was so fundamental in keeping Wimbledon up in League One previously, it would have been useful yet again. John Joe O'Toole was certainly a great League Two standard player previously with Northampton, being the best defender in League Two when the Cobblers won promotion in 2015-16. And we know he has expertise in keeping sides in League One. Morgan Williams is a youngster who I thought had much potential, but clearly Wimbledon disagree as they've let him go. I look at this squad and a lot of the starters from last season's success have departed, and in my opinion haven't been adequately replaced yet. So based on the current squad, I think it's weaker than last season. So unfortunately, an instant return to League Two. 20th, Burton Albion. If there's one side that knows how to stay in League One by the skin of their teeth every season, it's Burton Albion, isn't it? Somehow they do this every season. It's just natural at this point to predict them to stay up in 20th. Gary Boyert, for me, is a great manager as he's very technically minded and has earned promotion from League Two with Blackpool before, promotion from the Scottish Championship with Dundee, and I obviously remember him from his time at Derby's Academy, where some of his under-23 side are now staples of Derby's first team, notably Liam Thompson. You look at Burton's squad and you just know that they will stay up, despite having one of the smallest budgets in the league. Fabio Tavares has been made permanent, and I thought he was decent in the short spell on loan he had with the Brewers last season. Same can be said for Dylan Williams, who is one of those modern-day fullbacks who was with Bowyer at Derby's Academy. Kieran Lofthouse makes it a trio of loanees made permanent this window. What is noticeable is a move away from cloth football of appointing the tried and tested experienced professionals and instead bringing in youngsters, many of which have worked with Bowyer before, and he's clearly bringing the best out of them. Probably to then sell on and make a profit would probably be the aim, I imagine, such as they did with Roman Burrell, with the Jamaican international moving to QPR this window after making 30 appearances and scoring 11 goals last season. I do think he has a bright future, being 24 years old and working his way from the bottom up. JJ McKiernan returns on loan for a second season after joining last January. They have shifted on some deadwood as well in the forms of Mason Bennett, John Darcy Wolfenson. Definitely washed that pronunciation wrong. Max Crocombe, Anthony Ford, and Billy Bowden all moving on. Certainly, this youthful side has impressed me, especially in pre-season, where since that 5-0 drumming against Chesterfield, have beaten Birmingham, Sheffield United, and Derby County. Also, shout out to John Brayford, who had a testimonial this pre-season, who retired at the end of the last season after 12 seasons over 2 spells at the club and has made 407 appearances for the club. and is obviously now a coach and at the club, an absolute club legend. I can see him moving into management in the future at some point soon. 19th, Stevenage. Alex Revel is a questionable choice as a manager to take over from Steve Evans, who only has a record of win in 3 games last season. And the time he was previously with Stevenage, his only other time as a manager was 1 win in 4 games. I just don't think it is an inspired choice to compete in this league. And realistically, I think we will see them embroiled in a relegation battle, with them already showing regression last season. Kem Campbell is a good acquisition, being young and very important in Reading's surprisingly good season last season. Jordan Horton comes with 160 Plymouth appearances, helping them to League One and EFL Trophy double in 2022-23, and also previously won League Two promotions, and obviously been vital in the last 2 championship seasons with Argyle. Beryl Labala is not a prolific striker to say the least, but his pace is a handful to the defenders, which are typically slower in League One than the Championship. I thought the League One experienced veteran Jake Forster-Kasky wasn't afforded a chance last season, and that loss of experience on the pitch was part of a decline of Stevenage last season, I think. I do think this season will be another step backwards, and they will be immersed into a relegation battle without even realising it. 18th, Exeter City. Gary Caldwell's whole managerial spell has been involved in relegation battles. Do I really expect this season to be much of a difference? Not really, no. The only incoming who I think is League One standard is Ryan Rydell, who is young at 24, but has so far been unable to cement himself as a regular with Stockport, well, not only since being with them in League Two. Even then, he's a downgrade on Ben Purrington, who they didn't renew the contract of. Sheikh Tiabate going to St Johnstone also weakens that defence, but was probably their stronger department last season. Same can be said for Angus MacDonald, who provided a stopgap in the defence last season when there was a bit of an injury crisis. Ryan Woods, as a defensive midfielder, also looked decent last season. So last season, they scored 49 goals, a relegation candidate goal output, certainly, and they have opted to weaken their defence, and the only attacking player they have brought in is Jaden Warham, who scored 5 goals in 37 appearances for Reading last season, a very poor output in a decent side. They are definitely likely to be involved in a relegation scrap this season. Let's be brutally honest here. 17th, Bradford City. Graham Alexander was the best manager in League Two last season and is certainly a great manager with League Two and National League promotions on his CV. But he has also had a League One playoff charge with Scunthorpe before. I do think he is one of the best managers in the lower leagues, therefore I suspect he will do decent this season. Just look at some of those incomings with Will Swan, who has good movement, first touch, awareness and finishing skills. Stephen Humphreys, who scored 11 in 29 games in League One with Rochdale. Some form that Bradford would hope comes back to win this season, but he did score 9 goals last season, so still decent for a left winger. Wimbledon's best player last season in win-back, Josh Newfield, as we've already mentioned. League One veteran Matthew Pennington, who is certainly a centre-back I'd want in a team looking to cement themselves in League One. 3 times League One promotion winner with Wigan and EFL Trophy winner with Sunderland in the form of Max Power. So we can bring back the statement Matt Shot and Max Power behind it. Hey. Curtis Tilt, who did prove a bit of controversy in terms of signing, seeming he's 33, however, thus far in pre-season has seemed to be one of their better players. Gambian international Ibu Toure, who for 3 out of the last 5 seasons has been the best left back in League Two, including that season when he helped Stockport promotion to League One, and last season adapted equally well to League One, helping Stockport to the playoffs in their long-awaited return to the 3rd tier. Joe Wright comes in with quite the statistics in goals scored for a centre-back, as with Kilmarnock, he scored 10 goals in 93 games. You just look at this squad, and with just under 18,000 fans on average supporting the team at home every week, they certainly have one of the better home attendances and grounds in. Well, it's definitely one of the better ones in League Two, and certainly a good one for League One standard as well. Valley Parade may well become Fortress and comfortably be out the relegation picture, probably lower mid-table at the end of the day. 16th, Rotherham United. Now, I know Matt Hamshaw was a key part of Rotherham's success in seasons gone by as a first-team coach under Paul Warne. However, he has never experienced a season as a manager and therefore will take some time to learn what it's like in the managerial hot seat. I think this season will be very mid-table as Hamshaw gets to grips with the management style. The only signing I rate is Denzel Hall, who comes from Eredivisie and he's young at 24. So if he can adapt to English football, will certainly be a player with huge resale advantage. I would actually say the side, though, is weaker than last season, losing ball-playing centre-back Cameron Humphreys, last season's first-choice goalkeeper in Dylan Phillips, with Ted Khan certainly not an adequate replacement. Hakeem Adofin is a great defensive midfielder who I think is approaching his peak years. Alex McDonald is a probably League Two standard, but was worth as a bench option. And have we forgotten that incredible season Jonson Clarke-Harris had? Jonson Clarke-Harris had at Peterborough relatively recently in 2022-23, or slightly early in 2020-21. Both seasons he had a phenomenal goal-scoring ability, arguably the best striker, if not the best player in League One, scoring 33 goals in 2020-21 and 29 in 2022-23 in all competitions. Those numbers are ridiculous, and despite having a mixed season last season, making 29 league appearances, he still popped up with 11 goals. To let him go on a free is arguably the worst decision to make. This side is undeniably weaker than the 13th place finishing side of last season, so I think yet another step backwards and another mid-table finish in 16th. 15th, Barnsley. Another side from South Yorkshire that had underperformed last season, and much like Rotherham have decided to do a major gamble in making Conor Hourihane first-team manager with no previous managerial experience. It's a lot of pressure to place on a former Ireland international. David McGoldrick just somehow keeps going in terms of goal-scoring output and overall performances. So even though he's 37, I still think that's a good signing. Obviously, linking up with Conor Hourihane and with both of them playing with each other at Derby a couple of seasons back. Murphy Cooper was good on loan with Stevenage last season, but I don't think he's coming in to be the starting keeper. I don't rate any of the other signings with them being far too young and inexperienced and only on loan. If you're getting a youngster player, you want to bring them on permanently, really. They have a real weakness, though, I'd say, in right back. And I think the midfield is lightweight as well. The thing is, we really don't know how Hourihane's preferences as a manager is. And that unknown quantity may result in a bit of a transitional season ending in mid-table. Ultimately, the owner will decide if he persists with a project when things get tough under Hourihane. But I must say, I have heard from certain sources that he is a very analytical manager. So I think has got a good prospect in the future. A bit like Liam Rosenior at Derby. I just think he needs a bit more time to earn his badges. 14th, Blackpool. I backed Steve Bruce at the start of last season, but I think now he has actually made Blackpool weaker overall. They have certainly shored up the defence, adding Fraser Horsfall, who was with Stockport when they earned League Two promotion. I was probably the best centre-back in League Two when he consistently played at that level with Stockport and Northampton. So now he's approaching his peak. It's certainly an exciting acquisition. Michael Ihiekwe is one better, having earned 3 League One promotions and an EFL trophy. I think when he was with Rotherham, he was League One's best centre-back and their best player. Jordan Brown, as a defensive midfielder, further shores up that back line, being a key part of Leyton Orient's success over the last few seasons. Obviously, he came through the Derby Academy and remember from them days. George Honeyman is a shrewd signing, who I think is a championship standard midfielder. And last time he was in League One, he earned promotion with Hull City and was the best midfielder in League One and was Hull's best player in an impressive title-winning campaign. They've also loaned in Danny Imray, who with Bromley last season looked really good when I saw them play. And Bailey Peacock-Farrell, who is with Northern Irish first-team keeper and comes with Premier League experience, albeit mainly as a backup. And despite seeming to have been around for absolute ever now, he's still only 28 years old. So you may validly turn around and say, they've improved so much, then why are they going to go backwards? Well, this is because they've replaced the gaps of strength that they had. It's just stop gaps in terms of where they had strength last season. Jordan Lawrence Gabriel is a versatile defender capable of playing anywhere across the back line, but best known for being an attacking fullback on the right, who takes on opponents with pace, getting forward and whipping in across. So he's a huge loss. Richard O'Donnell was a good goalkeeper to have as an option, certainly. Matthew Pennington is a loss at centre-back. We all know how good Jordan Rhodes is at scoring, albeit last season wasn't his best season. I think realistically, the side is roughly the same in quality, and I don't think Bruce is the right manager to take this team onto the next level. He has been poor in recent managerial spells and is incredibly dull to watch, focusing on defensive football, something that simply doesn't work with this attacking-minded squad. 13th, Cardiff City. The issues off the pitch with Cardiff have been well documented, with this relegation just coming as another twist in the long and painful story of Vincent Tan's ownership. If there's a guarantee, it's that Brian Barry Murphy will probably not last the whole season. So let's review his career to date, just for our entertainment, shall we? He spent 2 seasons with Rochdale, guiding them to relegation from League One. He then became a manager in Manchester City's academy somewhere. Something that really doesn't matter too much because that's just working with youngsters, really. Then he became Ruud van Nistelrooy's assistant manager at Leicester in what I must say have been one of the worst managerial displays at Leicester in over 15 years of the club now. They've brought in no one of note in playing ability. One of the consistent starters last season was Callum Roda, and he has left the club. And there released so much quality on a free in the shape of Anwar El Ghazi, Dimitrios Goutas, Yaku Omete, Aaron Ramsey, and Andy Rinomota, who are all established internationals in their respective national teams with huge caliber and ability. I think just about the starting lineup is strong enough to be competitive, but we have a very shallow squad, so we'll be hoping for not many injuries. I'll be generous and say that the side will not be dragged into another relegation dogfight and get some stability and finish mid-table, but I am far from convinced by the manager and the depth to make any form of playoff challenge in an instant return. This league has dragged some really big teams down with it. 12th, Leyton Orient. I find the Leyton Orient project a really inspiring one, actually. And Richie Wellens is certainly one of the best managers of the Football League, because I don't think anyone expected Leyton Orient to be competing in the playoffs last season. They have made some crucial signings in Aaron Connolly, if he can have a better season than he has done in the last couple of youth seasons anyway. But there's clearly something there for people to keep on getting drawn to a player, having consistent championship experience. Tunisian international Idris El Mazouni and Sierra Leone international Josh Koroma, who has been great with Huddersfield Town recently. But can they truly replace the goal-scoring young midfielder Ethan Galbraith and the defensive midfielder Jordan Brown? I think overall this side overachieved though last season. And it's not an indictment against anything in terms of transfer-wise. I just think this is probably where I would have put the squad naturally, and I think it is a bit more of a reality check. I do also expect a few more outgoings to possibly come before the start of the season. So yeah, mid-table. 11th, Reading. Noel Hunt did have a good season last season, but if you look at the season as a whole, it started looking like a playoff contender, then fell away, and I couldn't get back into him. It could be a fairly similar season, just this time round. I don't think they'll be able to recover to look in the race. Don't get me wrong, Powdy O'Connor is a good player who was great at Bradford City and seemed to have adapted to League One well with Lincoln. Jack Stevens, I wouldn't think as being first choice, but if he is, then that is a disaster waiting to happen in goal department. Liam Fraser is a Canadian international, but again was poor last season. Overall, this side is quite young and inexperienced, and one area of weakness I would point out is Harvey Nibbs looks destined to join Charlton. I don't know if he's done so already, but by the end of the window, he would have definitely joined them. They just don't look good enough, any of the other strikers of the club, to replace him, and therefore a deficit in goals is highly likely. I just have a feeling that Reading won't quite make the cut with them struggling to mount a serious playoff push for the season. 10th, Plymouth Argyle. Last season, Tom Cleverley definitely underperformed with the squad of the capabilities of Watford, and that being his only managerial experience, it's hard to point to a positive reference point so far. I think we could see a bit of a rebuild happening, to be fair, with the past couple of seasons being quite negative, focusing on trying to stay up. and had some demoralising defeats, this is a chance really to start from scratch. Ultimately, this club needs some managerial stability. They need to allow Cleverley time because there has been a huge upheaval in this transfer window. Jamie Patterson is a good signing, who is a championship veteran in attacking midfield. Arabian Peppel is a symbolic signing of much of this window of bringing in youngsters to transform into a combative squad. They've been very savvy, I would say, but there's some major losses. Let's not get us wrong here. Daniel Grimshaw is a goalkeeper who, in a couple of seasons' time, I think we'll see knocking on the door of a Premier League with probably a newly promoted side. Adam Randall has spent his entire career, apart from a loan spell with Torquay at Plymouth, and with the academy product featuring regularly in the last 2 seasons in the Championship, he's proved himself more than capable to compete at that level. His partner crime in the defensive midfield role is Jordan Horton, who has also moved on. A player I don't think anyone is surprised to see move on is Mustafa Bundu, who, despite being in a relegation dogfight all season, still put up double figures in goal and is a Sierra Leone international. So coming into his peak years, no wonder he fancied the Bundesliga over League One. The few times I watched Plymouth last season, a player which always stood out to me was Maxim Talavierov, who unfortunately did get injured last season, so was restricted to just 13 appearances in all competitions. But one of them was a standout display for me, and that was against Manchester City, where he controlled the defence admirably and scored against one of the best sides in England. That is the core of the squad wrenched out. I still don't feel the defensive midfield or centre-backs have been adequately replaced. So as I already stated, this will be a season transition, maybe an outside shot of the playoffs, but better to build than to be rushed into decisions in an attempt to make an instant promotion back to the Championship and end up out of pocket and stuck in League One with a huge wage bill. So I think they're going about things rightly, but I would expect a 10th place finish. 9th, Bolton Wanderers. Steven Schumacher is a good manager when given time. We know he prioritises defensive stability and long-term projects. But the issue is, with a club like Stoke, which was his last managerial spell, I don't think he was given the luxury of time. And he was quite very poor with Stoke, to be fair. And I think that might be a bit similar to a club like Bolton in a lot of ways, actually, with both of the clubs underperforming and sort of trying to spend their way out of a current rut. But it just isn't working, is it? Xavier Simons is an emerging talent, so great pickup. But other than that, I think the window is generally quite poor, if they are trying to improve upon last season, that is. I'm eagerly anticipating if Teddy Sherman-Lowe can make the jump up, because he was immense with Doncaster last season, earning promotion to League One. Question marks though remain over whether he is an improvement on Nathan Baxter, who has moved on to Watford. Gethin Jones has been a loyal servant to the club, and I think his absence last season showed in general team's performances. So releasing him was a bad move. Another loyal servant to move on, and I would say is a great player, is Ricardo Santos, or Santos rather. And when he was with Bolton, he helped them to earn promotion to League One, and was their best player probably during that time. And his consistency means he's probably one of the best defenders at least League 2 level during that season year promotion. Well, you may be saying, well, no biggie, that's for League below. But he also adapted really well to League One. And in 2022-23, when they reached the playoffs and he was the best defender in League One that season. And he helped Bolton to lift the EFL trophy that season. So that, I think, is a poor move. A possible replacement they could have opted for, seeing they did release Santos, was the youngster Luke Matheson, who they clearly thought not good enough to gamble with, and so he was also released. You look at this overall squad, and I don't think many good additions are there. And actually, I think some of the departures make the side weaker overall. What I would urge Bolton fans is don't press the panic button and demand a sack of Schumacher, because he can, in time, come good at this level. I just don't see it happening instantly at this level. That's at this season, rather. 8th, Stockport County. This is not a knock on Dave Challoner in the slightest. And if you are a regular to the channel, you will know how highly I rate him as a manager. I think that Stockport overperformed last season, though, reaching that 3rd place finish. Taiyui Dunn is a gamble in terms of incomings, but if it comes off, then he can be phenomenal as a marauding fullback. but I think has failed to show consistently enough for me to be fully sure yet on him. Malik Movassal had a great season last season, resulting in a call up for Jamaican international team or national team as he scored 12 goals as a winger and has become Stockport's record signing of all time, record transfer fee as. The questions remain over whether he can adequately replace, though, Isaac Oloefe, who scored 20 goals in their League Two promotion winning squad, and I certainly think is a good player. Sam Hughes was never given a chance, but I thought he was a good centre-back at this level. The issue is a lot of that League Two promotion winning side has actually now left, and maybe a bit of that successful mindset alongside with it. That's not to say it won't be a great season, but I think this time of the playoffs may be just out of reach as they finish just short in 8th. 7th, Mansfield Town. There's always a side which comes out of complete nowhere and shocks the league in League One. And normally that's the side which is in lower mid-table and they suddenly come out amazingly well. With a good coach in Nigel Clough and the headwinds of recent success, it could well push them onto the next level, but they're moving away from mid-table and challenging for the playoffs. Carl Noyle is a right back that at League Two level was great, but hasn't been the most favoured player with Stockport. And I think he just needs some consistency to prove himself at his level because I think he's well and truly capable. Ryan Sweeney is by far the greatest League One defender, but as in not like is by far as in not the greatest League One defender. But with Burton for the past 2 seasons, I think has been their best player. And it's probably one of the reasons they can count themselves still in League One club, actually. That sort of grit and determination is what Clough looks for in players as he's raided his former club. And in an unusual league like League One, where playing styles clash, it is actually just sort of a player that you do need. Luke Bolton is a gamble, given his lack of game time in recent seasons. But will rekindle his passion he had when he was in Manchester City's academy and provide a bit of belief. We can see him back again, and he's still only 25, so plenty of time to get his career back on track. He just needs someone to believe in him. There is really an inexplicable reason I've put them as a playoff challengers, but the same probably would have been said of Clough's side's time and again, when he managed to get Burton into a championship, for example, or transformed Mansfield from a side which was in 21st in League Two to a side that is now comfortable in League One. Like it's just what he does, you know. 6th, Lincoln City. It wouldn't be a League One prediction video without me saying that Lincoln are going to be dark horses. So here I am again. They're going to be dark horses. Let's be honest. Before Michael Scobula was ever appointed as a manager of Lincoln, how many of them had actually heard of him? Go on. He never played football and only ever had an interim spell at Leeds beforehand. But much like Thomas Frank, has come out of absolute nowhere and actually implementing a philosophy that works. I mentioned Thomas Frank because that's sort of a similar model in terms of not really being well known as a player and doing things by the more sports science route, so to say, because actually Scobula used to be a PE teacher. But he has a 40.7% win percentage with Lincoln. That is low-key, very impressive. In his first season, they narrowly missed out on the playoffs last season. They were a bit further behind, but as in his first season, they missed out on the playoffs, and last season they're a bit further behind. But their defense definitely makes me think that they can make a playoff charge this season. With Sonny Bradley coming in with a wealth of experience to shore up that backline even further, and some of the deadwood has been shifted, and I fully expect a centre forward or two to come in to the club before the transfer window closes as well. They may not even need to focus so much on strikers, though, with the goal output standing at 30 goals out of 64 of them goals last season, coming, and that's almost half, by the way, coming from set pieces, which was the best in the EFL, and have also effectively deployed a counter-attack, scoring 5 goals by that means as well. So if you are a side which tries to play football or lack a towering centre-back in your side, then you can best believe that Lincoln will beat you this season. This sort of football is only becoming more common as a move away from, like the sort of nice sort of football. You know what I sort of mean by that. You know, the easy on the eye sort of football. Well, that's just becoming more common, and that move away from hoofball and defensive plays becoming much more mainstream. So maybe those who can counter that can gain results. This is what I think will happen with the Imps this season. And much like with that meme going around last season with Arsenal only scoring from corners, it still bore out success, relatively speaking. They finished in second. And if Lincoln can do likewise to a similar degree of effectability, then sixth place, I think playoffs is well and truly on the cards. Fifth, Huddersfield Town. I think a lot of people are backing Huddersfield for the title, or at least automatic promotion, but they are basing their predictions on the transfer window alone, which I will come into in a moment because I think it has been great. I just want to say that Lee Grant, for me, may be the obstacle to that success that the Terriers want in terms of automatics, because he has never been a manager before. Now, I rated the former goalkeeper heavily while he was at Derby. Actually, personally, I think he was the best goalkeeper we've had in the past 20 years or so. But that means nothing in terms of management. He was part of the backroom staff with Ipswich, and so obviously was a key part of that successful management squad, that successful squad that happened over the last couple of years, But he is now in charge in his own right, and I think much like Lampard at Derby, will probably take a little time to adjust. But then once he has, no one can stop him, and they can charge to a playoff finish. This is based on some championship quality acquisitions, though. Marcus Harness moving in from Derby, who is a paceful, skillful winger, capable of playing either side as a wingback or even as an attacking midfielder. Ryan Ledson, who is a Preston legend, borderline saying at this time, having made 184 appearances in all competitions and is now approaching the peak of his career. He aids that midfield just further. Talking of signings from Preston, you also have Jack Watmore, who, let us not forget, last time he was in League One, he helped Wigan to promotion, being their best player and the best centre-back in League One that season. And he's now approaching his peak. The defence, which was already the strong department of the side, really, has now been strengthened further. And what about the weakness that they have, which was arguably the goal output? Well, we brought in Alfie May, who has had 4 straight seasons of being truly incredible in League One. He scored 16 with Birmingham last season, 23 with Cheltenham the season before, and 20 and 23 respectively with Cheltenham in those 2 seasons, after he helped them to League 2 promotion the season prior. You really couldn't ask for a better League One player at present, especially seeming they need to improve in the goal scoring department. Sorba Thomas will be a loss because he is a championship standard player and a Welsh international. You can understand why he doesn't want to stick around in League One. But Owen Goodman on loan, I neglected to mention, is another great acquisition. With him winning League Two's Golden Glove last season, promotion, and was the best goalkeeper actually with ASC Wimbledon in the whole of League Two last season. I think this side will definitely improve from last season. The question will be to by what extent, but my opinion is at the moment that they'll reach the playoffs. Fourth, Wycombe Wanderers. Despite losing Matt Bloomfield halfway through last season, they still had a respectable season, albeit losing ground on the title race and ending up in the playoffs. Mike Dodds was the man responsible for that, not a total capitulation, which is very possible when the manager responsible for all that success leaves. They have gone quite big, though, in the transfer market to try and have another successful season. Junior Quaterna is capable of playing winger, wingback, or attacking midfielder, and with his youth and pace, I think he will be a right handful of defenders. James Tilley, who plays as a deeper striker, was important in Wimbledon's promotion from League Two last season, and part of the reason for so many incomings is that they have lost a lot of quality for nothing. Brandon Hanlon, Sam Vokes, Labala, and Kieran Sadler will all be missed. But they still contain the core of that squad which reached the playoffs last season. So I think it's a very similar season where they'll yet again finish in the playoffs. Third, Doncaster Rovers. Now, this may be a bit of a mad shout, but we know Grant McCann has great pedigree at League One level. When he had his previous spell with Doncaster, he took them to the playoffs in League One in 2018-19. And he's yet again doing wonders with Doncaster. He also oversaw Hull City win promotion from League One by guiding them to the 2020-21 title. And with Peterborough last time he was in League One, he was just outside the playoffs in 8th. So despite having just come up, McCann's vast array of experience at this level means I'm going to immediately back them to finish in the playoffs, continuing the great form they had last season. Brandon Hanlon was the exact type of forward they needed to aid Billy Sharp. Yes, he can score and hold the ball up well in terms of Billy Sharp, but that he just doesn't have that pace anymore. He's just getting on a bit, And this is why Hanlon is so good, as he's pacey and can hold the ball up well and score goals. So this could actually be a lethal strike duo. A bit like we saw last season with Chasser and McGoldrick in terms of Notts County. McGoldrick didn't have a mobility, but he had Chasser sort of all around him, providing that feed him off the target man, And you've also got Glenn Middleton who comes in, and he's got a great assist record with Dundee United. I'm going to mention the fact in 2023-24, when they won the promotion from the Scottish Championship, he chipped in with 13 assists and 4 goals in 36 league games, which is pretty much a goal contribution every other game. Matty Pearson is an experienced centre-back at League One and Championships level, who comes in with 128 appearances with Luton and 123 appearances with Huddersfield. With both sides, he was a centre-back who chipped in with some goals. A goal-scoring centre-back, what more do you need? He scored 10 at Luton and 16 with Huddersfield, so it's clearly a threat on set pieces. Another defensive incoming is Conor O'Riordan, who, as a youngster at 21, proved himself admirably at League Two standard with Crewe last season. So if he continues his good form when they do have a play on their hands, I was not even mentioning the quality they already have at the club without any incomings in the forms of Billy Sharp, Luke Molyneux and Jamie Sterry. What a foundation to build upon. I think naturally they will achieve playoffs due to McCann's calibre and past successes at this level and some of the standout quality in this side. Second, Port Vale. Again, you may call me absolutely ridiculous for this one, but Darren Moore has proven himself capable of managing a side to success with him in his first season guiding West Brom effectively to the Championship playoffs in 2018-19. I know he wasn't technically in charge for the last 10 games and stuff, but it was his squad. And over the COVID years, he had Doncaster knocking on the door of the playoffs in League One. He then took over Sheffield Wednesday, guiding them to 3 consecutive League One playoff finishes, finally earning promotion in the last one. And obviously last season was a success as he guided Port Vale to an instant return to League One. I always say this with managers. You have 3 different kinds. You got those who are good in promotion battles, those who are good in relegation battles, or those who are just average with no notable finishes at all and can just keep the side treading water. Darren Moore, with his attacking philosophy, definitely falls into the first of those categories. He's a natural winner for me. You look at the transfers and they don't look like players who will hold back. Jordan Gabriel, an attacking fullback who will whip in crosses and take on opponents with his pace and trickery. Guyana international Liam Gordon on the other side, who also possesses that pace and a great cross, who is coming off a great season with Walsall. The clear intention then is to play with wing-backs. And Cameron Humphreys is a ball-playing centre-back as well, who is fast, strong, aggressive, good in the air, and capable of moving into midfield. Pretty much the epitome, actually, of a modern-day centre-back. And actually, I would say almost the same type of player that Darren Moore was when he was a player. Rico Richards is a midfielder with a low centre of gravity and excellent dribbling ability. Jordan Shipley is a versatile left-footed midfielder who is highly regarded for his passing, movement, and work rate, and has a knack for scoring long-range goals as well, when the ball breaks for him or in a set-piece delivery. You look at the side that they had last season with the likes of pacey, high-energy right-back Mitch Clark, who gets involved in attacks. You've got Jaden Stockley, who in 2018 scored the most amount of headed goals in Europe, and is someone who those wing-backs can really pick out as the target man in the attack, who can hold the ball up and score goals with faster players around him, hence his 11 goals last season. Reece Walters, who has great vision, can get out of tight situations, and with this ability has a good engine, creative going forward, and has a good work rate off the ball. Ben Amos, who is a brave goalkeeper, who's good all round as a keeper, to be honest, is a good shot stopper and can claim crosses. Fuso Ojo, who can be deployed as either a box-to-box midfielder or a defensive midfielder due to his nature of transitioning defence to attack by passing to more creative players, but has good footballing intelligence and technical ability. Brian Crossdale is another hard-working central midfielder who can break up play and play passes to more technically gifted players. Jesse Deborah is a commanding, physical and composed centre-back Jack Shorrock is an extremely versatile player, but I think he's likely to play as a left winger. As you can tell by the depth and attributes I'm reading out, you can see why this team was so successful last season and guided by a winning manager. I can only imagine this success will continue this season and will achieve a consecutive promotion, because at present I actually can't see an area that is weak in this current squad. First, Luton Town. Considering how recently they owned the Premier League and they still had some of them players, you can fully expect Luton to make an instant return to the Championship. Matt Bloomfield was an excellent League One manager last season, where throughout most of the campaign he was in a title race with Wycombe Wanderers. They brought back fan favourite at Luton, that is, and vastly experienced Championship veteran Carl Naismith. George Saville is a box-to-box midfielder with ludicrous amount of energy, but can also play as a false 10 and is a Northern Ireland international, in part because of how great he was as a fan favourite as well on Millwall. Hakeem Adofin comes in from Rotherham, having been a key part of their Championship campaign. Everyone knows Championship goal scorer Nahki Wells, who scored at 35 years old. Even though he's getting on a bit, he scored 10 goals in the Championship last season, having netted 176 goals in 594 senior games to date. Obviously, there'll be some misses, such as Colton Morris, hence why Wells came in to replace their top scorer, Japanese international Daiki Hashioka, Thomas Kaminski, who I actually think is a top half Championship, maybe even Premier League quality goalkeeper, centre-back Reece Burke, Alfie Doherty, who is definitely Championship standard, so understandable why he left. And this does leave a lot of gaps. There's also those out of contract players with Amari Bell and Panzu, Victor Moses and Tim Krul all leaving as well. Even though they have lost lots of experienced players of great quality, they do have the basis of the squad, which I think is more than capable of an instant return. They just need to hit the ground running from the off, putting aside poor seasons gone by. And they actually have a chance to do that tonight in their opening game back at League One level. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, we've got a lot of comments today. We got Michael Keithley saying Bradford City for the playoffs. I don't think so personally, as you can tell from the predictions, but actually I do rate Granit Alexander, and I do think that they will do quite well this season. Wednesday night, I will be very surprised if Huddersfield Town don't make automatic promotion this season. I think a lot of people are backing them, to be honest, Wednesday night. I think just for me, that manager is what I sort of seeing as maybe that issue. I feel you're painful for Wednesday fans. Absolutely. We'll talk about that when it comes to the Championship predictions, but absolutely farce going on at the club right there. Wednesday night back again. I'm rooting for Stockport County in League One. I have family over there. Yep. Stockport County did decent last season. Certainly one of them teams that were knocking on the door of promotion for most of it and actually really impressed me and have done over the past few years now. Ever since they took that National League North promotion, they've just been going up and up, haven't they? So, yeah. Yes, Brian Barry Murphy, he used to play for us. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, his managerial expertise, I don't think is quite there. Darren Moore, good manager for League One and Two, always seemed like a quite nice guy in terms of personality. Actually, I think you're dead on right there. He used to play for Derby, and I always actually fancied him maybe when Derby were in League One, maybe we could have got Darren Moore as our manager then when we sacked, or got rid of rather, Liam Rossini, but then we opted for Paul Warne. But yeah, I rate him quite highly. I think he comes up quite a down-to-earth sort of guy. In terms of him Wednesday, he was knocking on the door in the playoffs, but I think he's in a very different side with Port Vale this season. And I think it's a very difference in terms of expectations levels as well, with Sheffield Wednesday probably expecting promotion from League One. I think Port Vale are probably expecting just trying to stay up. So, yeah. Thank you for all them comments. I think that's the most amount of comments potentially I've had in a video. And thank you to both Michael Keithley and Wednesday I8 for joining in. I've got some score predictions coming along tonight, further on, probably around about 7:30 ish, as I'm trying to wrap my head around some of the FA Cup ones, which I might only pick and choose some because it could be a very late night otherwise, because there's over 200 games in terms of that regard. So I may only choose certain ones to predict. In that regard, if everyone's all right with that. And so that's also on tonight. Please do subscribe if you are new around here. We are 1 subscriber away. That 1 subscriber could be you getting onto 190 subscribers. We're not that far away. We're on the final push for 200. See if we can get to 200 by, I think we could potentially do it by September. But if not, by at least the end of 2025. So, yeah, thank you very much all for watching. Let me know your predictions down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.